Hi, I'm Kent Wellington, Cincinnati market leader with the Graydon firm. 2021 marks Graydon's 150th anniversary. And while we are enormously proud to be celebrating that milestone, we recognize that the reason we continue to exist is our clients. They are the reason we're here, and they are the reason we are able to give back to the community in the many ways that we do. So to celebrate our 150th, we've decided not to shine a light on us, but rather to shine the light on some of the clients and organizations we serve who are truly iconic parts of our community. So we've launched a series of iconic conversations. Today, I'll be talking to Ellen Katz, the Executive Director of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. Welcome, Ellen. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kent.
I looked up the term iconic, as lawyers tend to do, and it throws off synonyms like classic or historic, but it also has a key term, important. And I think the Greater Cincinnati Foundation is one of those important organizations in town. Tell us a little bit about the history of GCF.
Sure. And congratulations on your sesquicentennial.
Oh,
one of my favorite words.
Good pronunciation.
So, GCF has a really great story. We actually became a community foundation in 1963. The great story is the foundation became a notion to some bankers in our community who looked across the state of Ohio and the nation and saw that banks were setting up foundations to support their communities in perpetuity. But we hadn't done that in Cincinnati. So with a good old competitive Cincinnati spirit, the bankers here wanted to figure out how to do it. So they were men, of course, and they had the great idea. But the actual foundation was started with a trust that came from some women. So the guys had the idea, the women had the cash, and the women who brought the money had been part of an organization that was responsible for convalescent aid out in the suburbs, which happened to be the property where Stepping Stones is right now. Mm-hmm. And they knew that their work would not, or their mission would not last long because of changes in the world at that time. And so they closed up their shop and they took their resources and they seeded the first fund that became the Greater Cincinnati Foundation.
Wow. Well, what's the mission today and how has that changed over time?
Well, still all about community. That's what community foundations exist for, to ensure the vibrancy and prosperity of communities in perpetuity. And for us at GCF, it's our responsibility to find the greatest opportunities and challenges and address them. And we know very firmly and clearly that the greatest growth opportunity that we have as a region comes through racial equity. So that is our mission right now, to create a more equitable community.
And how do you put that mission into practice?
Oh my gosh. Well, what we do is we raise and deploy resources. We support organizations across the region that are making a difference in ensuring the reduction of disparities across races. We build a really big tent where lots of people are able to participate with us, whether they're donors themselves who want to set up funds and contribute to the community, or stakeholders from every sector. We come together and try to marshal resources and deploy them against our issues.
Was racial equity something that came about as a result of the events of this summer, or was GCF ahead of the game?
No, we actually back in 2015 started to focus on equity as a superior growth strategy. And so we had made a lot of progress. And I will say that addressing something like equity is not just something that you do. It has to be something that you are. So we have been transforming the Greater Cincinnati Foundation to focus on equity from the inside out since 2015.
Great. I'm looking at your staff now. You've got a diverse staff. Is that part of it as well?
Oh, for sure. Diversifying staff is critical, and our board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we would be remiss in early 2021 not to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the pandemic. What unique challenges has COVID presented for GCF?
Well, many, and they really do go back to equity. I mean, the pandemic really showed us that we have failed the test in our ability to address disparities because the pandemic has shown us just how deeply rooted they are as we've watched more people of color become essential workers, ironically enough, and essential workers are on the front lines and experiencing the pandemic in very different ways. But of course, when the pandemic hit, we knew as a community foundation, when there are crises, we have to step up. They could be climate related crises, they could be anything. So we reached out to partners across the region to see what other funders, corporations would be interested in pooling resources so we can get the greatest leverage. We established a partnership with United Way of Greater Cincinnati, and together we raised $7.3 million in a matter of months and deployed those resources in a matter of months, which sounds like, yeah, of course, that's what you do, but it's not really all that easy to quickly set up an infrastructure that's capable of doing that. So, the pandemic has really shaped how we're thinking about community and our community work. And of course, we also as an organization have gone through all the transitions that all organizations have had to as we work in a virtual environment.
Yeah. We had you on the Graydon and Haran Bridge series a few months ago with United Way and really, complimented both of you on your collaboration. Do you have plans to continue that in the future?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we really, the United Way and Greater Cincinnati Foundation are our lead community philanthropy organizations. I mean, we have an amazing community in terms of charitable giving. You look at ArtsWave, which is the largest arts fund in the nation, and then United Way and GCF. We have to stay connected at all times.
Yeah. How about the future? What's the future look like for the Greater Cincinnati Foundation?
Well, we, as I mentioned, are on this racial equity journey. We see it as a no exit strategy type of journey. This is the work of our generation. It will take persistence and sustenance. So we are going to continue to convene others, marshal resources, and be very strategic about where we're focused because we, to borrow a phrase, really can't boil the ocean. So right now we are particularly focused on addressing disparities, particularly for Black women, seeing Black women as having tremendous potential for us all to rise. And we're focused on where she lives and where she works. So addressing affordable housing, quality affordable housing so that lower income people have access to places they can buy and rent. And also where she works, because we do have issues in our region with respect to income for people in our community. So that's where we're pointed right now.
Great. Graydon's had a nice connection through the years with the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. I know when Tom Brennan was here, he chaired the board. Chris Buttress, who leads our estate planning practice.
Very important to us.
Have been very involved. And I've been impressed, not just with your staff, but a number of the volunteers and the board, really taking a high level academic look on how we can move the needle in the community. For those who have not gotten involved with Greater Cincinnati Foundation, what can they do to help support GCF?
Well, I mean, there are lots of ways, obviously, to contribute. We have many funds. If people have specific interests, like we've been talking about racial equity, and obviously justice is a key component of racial equity. So we have a racial justice fund. People can contribute there. Right now, we have a fund for educational support. I mean, the digital divide is so critical to address right now so that kids can stay on pace with school. So there are multiple different types of funds. We also have a next initiative for younger people that want to get involved and pool resources to be able to contribute to initiatives across the region. You mentioned we have a lot of people that work with us on committees, and thank you, Kent, for being part of our community strategies work for such a long time. So people, if they're interested in joining committees, there's opportunities for that. We do giving circles. The list goes on. We have a brand new website. It's pretty sweet. People want to check it out, see what we can do.
It's great. Graydon started 150 years ago really as an estate planning firm. I mean, that was our stock and trade, and we've continued to move forward. And before we started this, I talked about this week alone, we had 2 clients come who, wanted to start family foundations. And the more we talked to them, the more we realized, they'd be much better off starting as a fund at the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. So we've enjoyed that partnership through the years. But enough about GCF for a moment. Let's talk about you. All right. Tell us about the journey that ultimately led you to the role at the Greater Cincinnati Foundation.
It's good. It's got a Graydon connection, so I'm happy to tell it.
Good.
So I had been at the Children's Home of Cincinnati for 15 years when I was asked if I'd be interested in succeeding my predecessor at the time. So I had started there in a very entry-level role as a youth worker in residential treatment with bright eyes, wanting to become a child psychologist. And I'd sort of moved my way through various positions in the organization. I'd gotten my graduate degree in psychology, gotten an MBA, had sort of abandoned my thoughts about becoming a child psychologist, but loved the organization. So when I was asked if I was interested in succeeding the CEO at the time, I said I absolutely would. And how long will that be? And the answer was 18 months. And I thought, wow, that's going to be a really long time for the 2 of us to sort of be in the saddle together. So I asked the board chair at the time, who happened to be Steve Black from Graydon, whether he would be open to my going off on executive loan and getting involved in another organization and coming back with new skills and new relationships, and leaving my predecessor Wes with some time to close up shop on his own. And so Steve, and I think this was really, really progressive on his part, just thought, it's a great idea. How would we figure it out? And I said, well, what if I go out and find out what's possible and come back to you? And he said, do it. So at that time, I went to the Greater Cincinnati Foundation for about 4 months, just to kind of get out of the way. And I came back and I left GCF thinking, wow, that was a really cool experience. Maybe a fun future gig, but right now I'm going back to the Children's Home to be the CEO. And 10 years later, my predecessor now, Kathy Merchant, announced her retirement, and I threw my hat in the ring.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
So you are a balanced Cincinnati, and you've got University of Cincinnati and Xavier University.
I do.
And undergrad, you were where? In Vermont?
University of Vermont.
Are you from out east?
Yeah. Born and raised in Connecticut. Went to school in Vermont. Tumbled into Cincinnati at the very end of 1989. Right.
Well, it's a hot town right now, that's for sure, in many ways. What do you tell the folks back east about Cincinnati?
That's a good question too. So, well, actually, when I first came here, so I mentioned I had moved here from Vermont, and my friends from Vermont were like, what are you doing? Like, I think it's really flat there. It's a real flat land. So one of my favorite things to do when I first moved here was invite all of my friends to come out here and bring their mountain bikes so we could just ride around the flat roads of Cincinnati.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, pretty fun. So a couple of friends of mine came here panting and leaving with really tired legs. And today, I just love having people come in, for a 3-day visit here. My gosh. Making our way to the Cincinnati Art Museum, the restaurants, it's just a really fun, beautiful, sparkling place to enjoy time with my out-of-town friends.
So let's drill down and get more specific. So someone coming to Cincinnati for the first time, and let's say they have a weekend, with you from out of town, I know you're going to be diplomatic here in your response, but whether it's food or events, what would you do and where would you take them?
Okay, so it depends on the time of year, of course. So we've got season tickets to the Reds. So if we got a couple friends, we're probably going to be sitting in our seats and seeing a baseball game.
Safe.
I live a couple steps away from Graders, so we're definitely doing that. I'd like taking people down to our office at 720 East Pete Rose Way, parking the car, getting out, walking across the street. There's the Purple People Bridge, taking a walk down the waterfront. Definitely catching one of the cool restaurants. And honestly, if we have a little extra time, we're going to get in the car and we're going to go to the Bourbon Trail.
Oh, excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Very regional of you to make that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, what else might you want to leave our listeners with about the Greater Cincinnati Foundation as we head into 2021? We've covered a lot, but anything we've missed or
well, yeah, for sure. I mean, we're really on a mission to build a movement in this region for people to get comfortable talking about race and recognizing that there's great opportunity for us in addressing the issues. So we've created a series called Racial Equity Matters, and we are bringing as many people into those programs as possible to get comfortable talking about race and understanding disparities and where they came from, to try to take some of the guilt and emotion out of it if possible, so we can really address these issues. So our Racial Equity Matters series is something else people can find on our website. 2 programs. One is a half day. The other is 2-day. I haven't met a single individual who's gone through it. And we've maybe had 2,500 at this point who hasn't said, I feel like my life has changed. Yeah. So we all would love for as many people as possible to just step up and have that experience.
That's great. That does fit perfectly with our 150th. And although we are the oldest law firm in town, we are trying to be the most innovative and vibrant, and just as importantly, the most diverse, equitable, and inclusive. So we love partnering with you. We love your leadership and everything you've done at the Greater Foundation. Keep it going. Thanks, Ellen.
I'll do it.